Greetings and welcome to the channel. Now in this video I'm going to talk about how pure was Anglo-Saxon and Viking silver, and why as Vikings and Saxons do we wear silver. Of course, if you're really rich you could afford gold, but not a lot of people can't afford gold, so we choose to go down the route of silver. So how pure was silver? Well, when it came to ingots and silver in its pure form, and it's made and cast into an ingot, which is like a little bit of a shape. I don't really have any on me at the moment, but ingots are generally pure when it comes to purity of around about 85 to 95%. And the reason for this is that the silver hasn't been worked yet when it comes to being turned into jewellery. So that silver has still got to go through another stage of purity. And there's many methods of doing that, which I'll explain in another video. But generally, ingots were all pure when it comes to the purity of between 85 and 95%, which I'm sure you agree is quite high. And as you can see, I've got a good Thor's hammer silver and a very hefty necklace with a pendant, dragon pendant. And here we have an oversized brooch, which will go on your shoulder on a cloak. And I'm sure you agree that's very large. So when it came to jewellery itself, jewellery and coinage are both at the same level. The purity of those items would be between 90% and 95%. They never quite got to the stage of making 100% pure silver like we do today, because in the modern world we have the ability to refine silver to a much higher standard. But in those days it was limited to what skills you had and what knowledge you knew. So, and I find that to be fascinating. And of course there's a few factors that comes into silver purity when it comes to the time period. First of all, it depends on what period of history you're talking about, whether it's early on in the Saxon times or later on in the Viking times. I think generally later we progress in history, the purer silver got. But it also depends on another thing. It depends on the source of the silver. So if you're mining silver in Scandinavia, or you're mining silver in England, then it also depends on where the silver came from as well, on the purity of the silver. And I find that to be quite fascinating. And of course, one of the things that when the Vikings were raiding, whether it's Francia or going to Rome and raiding in the Mediterranean, or going to Ireland or the other different places they went to, one of the things they would look out for was silver, because it was a commodity that was quite valuable. But they were also looking for, especially in the Mediterranean and those sort of countries, the further they went, they were looking for crucible steel. And the reason for this is simply because crucible steel makes really good blades. And of course, it's very pure iron. And of course, if you're going to come back from a raid and you've got a ballast of stones at the bottom of your longship, if you could find somewhere that you could swap the stones over for something else, then I think you would definitely do that. And it makes sense to me that you would go and get as much silver as you could. You'd take all the coins, and you take all the silver jewellery of people, and you have to store it somewhere. So getting rid of some of your ballast and replacing it with silver instead, or ingots of iron, or even crucible steel. And the reason why it's called crucible steel, because it's made in a crucible rather than being smelted the traditional way. And that's a whole entire subject for another day. And the smelting of iron and the ability to make silver pure is also quite fascinating. But how did they know and how pure the silver was? Again, that came to the ability of the silversmith. And of course, a silversmith was also generally a blacksmith. Both of those trades interlinked between each other. Although no doubt you had some people that specialised in working iron, and no doubt you had some people that specialised in working silver and gold. But if you could work iron, you could work silver, and if you could work silver, you could work iron. So both of those trades interlinked with each other. And of course, if you're making a nice, lang sacks or sea axe for somebody, and they said, oh, I want some inlay of silver and copper or gold, you have to have the ability to work that material. So the silversmith, when working the material from an ingot into a flat bar, would know from how it's hammering and how it's heating in the forge to how pure it was. That was one of the methods they used, of course, for purifying silver. Of course, another method they'll use, which I don't quite understand and I've forgotten, is using mercury. They'll have a bowl of mercury and they'll get this silver and somehow heat it up, and some of the elements of the impurities I think would land and stay in the mercury, but because it's been so many years since I've seen anybody and talked to anybody about this, I kind of forgotten. So I will go down that journey and explore this subject a bit further in detail, but I wanted to give you that raw feel and that genuine feel to a video talking about silver. Now this is in my hand is a copy of a Silverdale brooch. And can a brooch be too big? Well, possibly so, because if you're marching behind me, you're going to get poked in the eye. But again, this is also very effective as a weapon. It's one of those secret weapons you can have on you, in the sense of if you get captured and held to ransom and they don't take off your cloak pin, well, you got a sharp pin you could hurt somebody with and escape. And I'm sure you agree, having that stuck into somebody would really, really hurt, if not kill them, if you did it in the right place. So silver and gold is a fascinating thing. I don't really own any gold when it comes to Viking silver because I'm not rich enough. I mean, maybe I may go down the route and buy some silver jewellery and then go through the modern stages of plating through electrolysis some gold. I think that might be quite fascinating. So yes, so to summarise the video, Viking silver, it varied to what it was. Of course, Viking hoards were also known to have a very high quality of purity when it came to silver and gold, and again that would be between 90 and 95%, and again I'm sure you agree that is a very, very high percentage. But why, as a Viking and a Saxon, do we wear silver jewellery? Well, we wear it to demonstrate our wealth and our status in society in those times. Because let's face it, if you're a very poor, Saxon, or you're a poor Viking, then you won't be wearing, colourful tunics like this, because red is a very rich colour. So you'd be wearing browns and pastel colours, those sort of colours that are very easy to dye when it comes to your wool. So again, wearing bright colours also demonstrates the fact that you've got wealth and you have the ability to afford really good colourful fabrics. Of course, I think the most rarest and richest colour is purple, because purple dye is extremely difficult to make, and I do believe you can get it from oak, but I've forgotten, because dyeing is such a complicated subject and it's not something I've done a lot of in my time. But I think in the future we will explore dyeing and try to demonstrate it authentically, but also using modern dyes as well to compare the two. So the reason why I wear silver is to demonstrate the fact that, yes, Braggy is a rich Viking and I can afford to wear rings and bracelets of silver, and I can afford to, wear good necklaces. Now, how many Thor's hammers would a Viking wear? Well, generally none. Because if you had silver and you was married, you'll give your silver jewellery to your wife to wear because she wore your wealth and not you. And that kind of makes sense to a certain degree, because it's just such a great, and it's a great idea. So there's my wife. I've just got married, to my wonderful girlfriend, and I'm a rich Viking warrior. So the jewellery I have, I'll give my girlfriend to wear. And it's the same with beads, because beads and glass beads were classed as precious stones because of the fact that they cost quite a lot of money. And I think I remember Eggle saying that, a bead is equivalent to a month's wages. So that's quite a lot of coin for one bead. Although it could be 1 week, I kind of forget. Let me know if you know the answer to that question of how much a glass bead is worth in Saxon and Viking culture. Is it worth 1 week's wages or 1 month's wages? Please let me know. And of course, they also had availability to garnets and also to gems. So you'd also have amber as well, which is also showing your wealth, because amber was very much sought after and traded. And I do have quite a bit of amber knocking about the place, and I'll talk about that in a future video. And of course, amber is fossilised tree sap, and I find that to be really, really fascinating. In fact, I got a few pieces with some insects in, and I find that to be fascinating when you think of the fact that they could be tens of thousands, if not millions of years old. That is why you wear silver. And one of the things, if I was living 1,000 years ago in Archaeology, and I had, a bit of land, and I was farming the land and selling produce and making profit, I'd have to pay every 2 years tax to the king. And this just finished the video talks about your tax evasion when it comes to silver. And again, it's another fascinating subject. So there's old Braggy, or old Eggle, and he's got a bag of silver coin he's made over the last 2 years, but he's got to go and pay his tax. So what does he do? He walks into the Arderby, he goes down to Amen Alley, where all the moneyers were based. That is the person that makes coins. And he'll say, right, I got all this profit, I got to, pay the king. So the money would melt all the silver down, remake some new coins. He will keep 1/3. He'll give 1/3 will go to the king, whether the money will pay the king or the local magistrate and it goes to the king. I'm not quite sure, or whether the individual who's made the money does that. It's another story for another day. And then the rest you got over is your other 40% is your profit. But if you're clever, you'll go and find a silversmith out of town or on the edge of town or somewhere, and you'll say, oh, I got this bag of silver profit here, can you make it into jewellery for me? If you do that, you evade tax, because that's a legal thing you could do. So tax evasion ain't a new thing. It's a very old thing, goes back a long way in history, because let's face it, do you want to pay tax to the king, or do you want to keep all your profit to yourself? Personally, I think I'd keep the profit for myself and have a better lifestyle as a Viking or Saxon. So I hope you find this video to be entertaining. If you have, then please consider subscribing to the channel. We love our history and we love our folk tales and stories. And I'll see you in the next video. And please leave me a good old emoji of a bear or a shield. And it's goodbye from Braggy. Goodbye.